let's see what Dream Yoga is. Essentially, it's an art and science of spiritual awakening. It's a tradition that has been ongoing in India, Tibet, and other areas of that part of the world for many centuries. As a matter of fact, for millennia. Probably started at the time of Buddha Shakyamuni about 2,500 years ago. As a matter of fact, his name, Buddha, or his spiritual name, means awake one. How did he become awake? And what does it even mean to be awake? Well, he basically became awake as a result of a profound spiritual breakthrough, which of course was based on his practices of meditation and perhaps also on his particularly beneficial karma. Now, what does it mean to become awake? Well, he literally awakened to the dreamlike nature of reality and recognized that what we consider a daily life was actually a dream. And that awakening led to the development of a whole huge religious movement nowadays called Buddhism. Now, of course, Buddha was not a Buddhist. He did not follow that movement. He was just simply sharing what he had to share. And he did not want people to worship him. He just wanted people to awaken also, because it's kind of lonely to be at the top of pinnacle of spiritual development. It's fun to have some community of like-minded people. And that's exactly what he was doing. He was sharing his breakthroughs, his knowledge, and also how to awaken. Now, there are different branches of Buddhism. There are different schools of thought in that religious tradition. However, some of the schools are more directly focused on achieving that kind of awakening or enlightenment, as we put it, as compared to others that may also be concerned about improving one's karma or developing greater harmony. You know, there are lots of great Buddhist teachings and traditions. However, there are a few that actually go straight to the root cause of what we're experiencing. What we're experiencing essentially can be viewed as a dream. How do we know that what we experience is similar to a dream? Well, what do we know about dreams? Everything we know about dreams is essentially based on our memory. If you remember a dream, you know something about it. Whatever the content of the dream is, it only matters that you remember it. Now, what do we know about our lives? Well, it also all depends on the memory. If you don't remember something about your life, it just never happened. In other words, the mechanism of memory is what provides us knowledge about both dreams as well as our daily lives. What else is similar? Well, for example, everything in dreams is made of energy, the energy of consciousness. However tangible, however realistic images are, or however tangible things are that we encounter in our dreams, which may include also our own dream body that represents us in our dreams, they're made of energy of consciousness. What else are they going to be made of in dreams, right? So if we consider that everything in our daily lives is also energy. Anyone who graduated from high school would probably agree with me, but it's not something that most people actually put to good use in their daily lives. What we learn is how to actually remember that everything is energy. We remember and remind ourselves that everything is energy, both in our daily lives, just like it is in our dreams. That's one of the aspects of the practice of remembrance. We'll talk about this in just a few moments. But before we go into the exploration of practices, let's take a look at what's the ultimate objective. Well, the ultimate objective might be realizing that this entire life is a dream, similar to what Buddha experienced. This is what we call enlightenment. Then what? Well, you actually continue experiencing this dream, but you experience it in a lucid manner. Just like you can be lucid in your dream at night, you can become lucid in this big dream called life. And this lucidity might give you a lot of benefits. One of the obvious benefits is that perhaps you would no longer create nightmares for yourself. You know, how many people live their daily lives like they're living a nightmare? Maybe you experience that yourself. And if you do, you may not feel like you are the one doing it. It's like somebody is doing it to you. But just like in a dream, even though you may feel that maybe dream characters are conspiring against you or some crappy things happening in your dreams, it's actually you who's dreaming it up. It's not somebody who's doing it to you. It's just you are doing it in a way that is not really conscious. If you're not awake, if you're not lucid in the dream, you may be doing it unconsciously, most likely. However, if you become lucid, if you become awake in the dream, would you continue turning into a nightmare like that? I bet you would actually get more creative because of another benefit that is associated with awakening or enlightenment, and that is tapping into ultimate source of creativity. If you realize that you are the dreamer of your dreams and you learn how to become creative in your dreams so that you create something more interesting than nightmare, then perhaps you develop new neural pathways or you develop access to new resources within yourself. It's the ultimate source of creativity. If you're dreaming up the entire dream world, that's as big of a creativity as it gets. And sky is the limit when it comes to creativity in your dreams, right? Well, imagine that you can actually tap into the same source of creativity, creating your daily life. That sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? But exactly what happens when you actually start living your life as if you're living a lucid dream. You literally realize, wow, I'm dreaming things up. I'm manifesting things all the time. Unwittingly, I may manifest things that I wouldn't want to experience. And oftentimes people focus a lot of their attention on what they don't want to experience. As you probably know, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you put a lot of attention on those things that you don't want to experience, guess where your energy goes? It goes into those things that you don't want to experience and supports the manifestation of exactly that which you don't want to experience. Well, that's how we create our nightmares. If we understand the mechanism of how we're creating nightmares, well, can we reverse engineer it and perhaps change the way that we use this mechanism so that we use our capacity, our capability to manifest things in a more conscious and perhaps more beneficial way? I bet we can. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what Dream Yoga has to offer. And in addition to that, of course, it also gives us something really cool. It gives us the ability to experience the flow of dreaming. Obviously, every dream has certain flow to it. If you resist the flow, that's a surefire way to turn the dream into a nightmare. You basically start fighting against the flow of things in your dream. As a matter of fact, the flow of things, the Tao, is also what a lot of people struggle against in their daily lives. Sounds like a really stupid idea, right? To struggle against the flow of the universe. But that's exactly what a lot of people do. Of course, they don't do it consciously. They do it completely unbeknownst to themselves because they're not awake to the true nature of the reality that they're experiencing. And so, of course, with that unwitting struggle against the flow, they rarely experience the state of being in a flow. Imagine that you become conscious in your dream. Would you continue turning it into a nightmare by constantly struggling against the flow? If now previously unconscious strategies for struggling against the flow come to the surface of consciousness and you have freedom of choice now, well, you probably would choose otherwise. Am I right? it probably would be like, wait a moment, I can actually enjoy this ride? Well, let's do it. And that's what we call being in flow. That's what we learn to experience on demand. We literally learn how to get into the flow of things and flow with it. Instead of struggling against the flow, we learn how to enjoy it. Now, I don't want to say that we just do this 100% of the time, because sometimes we need to experience some lessons. Those are the times when we actually need to focus on things we don't resonate with in our dreams that create some friction or struggle. Why would we want to do that? Because we need to learn things. We don't want to just operate at the same level of consciousness all the time. We expand our consciousness. And in order to expand consciousness, we need to learn new things. In other words, bringing that which used to be unknown into the realm of known. There is a very specific interface that everybody has heard of, but very few people actually connect the dots and realize that there's interface connecting the realm of known and the realm of unknown, allowing to shift things from the unknown into the known realm. This interface is called awareness. Awareness is the faculty of consciousness that allows you to get to know that which you previously didn't know. Becoming aware of things essentially gives you the ability to expand your consciousness. We develop much greater awareness as a result of becoming awake in our dreams and in our big dream called life. As a matter of fact, awakening in the dreams at night would serve as a really nice training ground for awakening in this big dream that we call life. You know, if you never experienced lucid dream, like you never awakened in a dream at night and became lucid, you probably would not know how to awaken in this dream we call life. It stands to reason that most people don't know it because they don't practice lucid dreaming. Well, that's one of my superpowers. And I also teach and practice it. And that's something that I would love to share with you. As a matter of fact, today's clinic is actually dedicated to the preliminary practices that allow you to awaken in your dreams at night. You see, in Tibet and other Oriental countries, there's a pretty strong emphasis on doing preliminary practices. Here in the West, everybody is so excited about getting everything quick and easy, right? It's like instant gratification. You pay money and you want the product right away. But the preliminary practices actually train your consciousness and train your energy system so that you would not get burnt out, you would not get Kundalini fever or chi deviations or other crappy things that happen to some practitioners who basically willy-nilly just started shooting energy in one direction or another without really knowing what they're doing and why. What do we want to do? We want to take smaller steps that would actually have greater consistency, and it would allow us to navigate our journey with much greater sense of control and ability to maneuver. In order to navigate, we need to have some maneuverability, right? In order to have this capability, we need to take smaller steps rather than taking large leaps. Now, I don't want to say that you should never take any leaps at all. For example, taking leaps of faith sometimes is actually what you need to do. But let's see how we can take smaller steps in the context of developing this level of awareness that most people never experience in the contemporary information age lifestyle. I'm talking about developing small, incremental, but very important enhancements in our consciousness. So what kind of enhancements would lucid dreaming provide to you? Well, as I already mentioned, it would provide you the ability to tap into ultimate source of creativity. That creative energy that resides within you often is the kind of resource that is unknown or untapped. Even the most creative people all agree that there is always room for improvement when it comes to creativity. Now, the creativity on demand is something that we would love to develop. In addition to that, lucid dreaming is also a perfect sandbox for playing with energy because it gives you ability to do energy practices in the most pure fashion. Literally everything is energy in dreams. Well, imagine that you can actually put to good use your energy skills and resources that you would be able to test out and develop a much greater sense of clarity and skillfulness in using those energy practices. In addition to that, lucid dreaming also might give you much deeper understanding of other dream characters. Any people or any dream entities that may be appearing in your dreams are not coming from elsewhere. They actually are products of your own dreaming consciousness. Your mind is basically projecting out certain aspects of itself that you may not identify with, so much so that they appear to be as separate entities. But they actually the projections of your own dreaming mind, and therefore you are one with them. Now, this sense of oneness is what allows us to also develop greater compassion. We realize we are not separate. We are actually one. We're one with the whole world of the dream. Just like people joke about the Dalai Lama when he orders pizza, then he said, "Make me one with everything." Now, that's actually what you experience in a lucid dream. You realize that you are one with everything, including the Dalai Lama. His Holiness is practicing dream yoga for many decades. When the Dalai Lama was a kid, he was taught how to develop certain skills that led to his development of ability to be awake or lucid in his dreams. I was taught from the age of 6 how to do the same. What I would like to offer to you is something very similar. It doesn't matter what age you are. You can start whatever point in time in your life you are at. You will still benefit. And you may even develop greater skills because you may connect the dots a little bit quicker than a kid. So, in order to become lucid in your dreams, we have some preliminary practices. And the preliminary practice that I already mentioned a couple of minutes ago is the practice of remembrance. What does it consist of? It literally consists of reminding yourself that you are dreaming at night. And if you tell yourself you're dreaming at night, by definition, you become lucid. Simple, right? How do you remember to remind yourself? Well, you need to develop a habit of doing it. And as you know, a lot of things that we dream about at night reflect directly or metaphorically those things that we do during the day. Now, let me ask you this. How often do you tell yourself that you're dreaming during the day? Probably never, right? Well, if you never tell yourself that you're dreaming during the day, how often do you think that's going to start happening in your dreams at night? Probably zero chance of that happening, or very little chance. Unless you're experiencing some profound nightmare. As a matter of fact, nightmares are not always bad. Sometimes it is important to experience a nightmare because it may spur you to recognize the dreamlike nature of your experience. In other words, the most significant, the most scary nightmares sometimes actually serve as catalysts for our awakening. Or put it this way, a lot of Buddhist teachers tell us that we want to go into nirvana, the state of freedom from suffering. Well, guess what? Getting to nirvana too soon actually may be detrimental to your spiritual development. If you don't experience any suffering, you actually will be less motivated to awaken to the true nature of your reality. In other words, you will less likely become enlightened. So nirvana is something that we want to actually save for the enlightened people. Let's go into the state of freedom from suffering when we are ready to experience enlightenment. Until that point in time, we learn to realize that suffering is optional. In other words, we can actually have a handle on it. So that's what the practice of remembrance does for us. We remind ourselves during the day that we're dreaming. Sounds like a delusional idea, right? Who would want to tell themselves that I'm dreaming in the middle of the day? Well, if you do this on a consistent basis, you will actually create neural pathways in your brain that will be associated with a new habit, the habit of telling yourself that you're dreaming. And once that habit gets solidly established in your consciousness, then it will start showing up in your dreams at night. So you will start telling yourself you're dreaming when having a night dream, and by definition, becoming awake in that dream. And if you also tell yourself that you are in a dream where everything is energy, then you will be able to fine-tune your energy awareness and put it to good use in your dream. Well, in order to remind yourself that everything is energy in your dreams, you might as well do that also as a matter of habit in your daily life. That's right. The practice of remembrance actually suggests not only to remind yourself that you're dreaming, but also that everything's energy. Well, guess what? Everything is energy in our daily life. It's just most people don't recognize it as such because they perceive things on the surface. Most people's attention is trained to focus on the appearances rather than the inner essence of things. So they perceive people only superficially. They perceive objects around them superficially. They pay attention to the form, not the substance. Well, how about we start with ourselves? Let's connect with our own inner essence, which is pure energy, instead of just relating to ourselves on a superficial level. Well, that's the holy grail of Qigong. Qigong, as an energy art, is all about developing awareness of how everything is energy and how we can be in the flow of this energy, informed and empowered by the flow of things, the Tao. If we develop this level of attention that we can focus on energy instead of appearances, guess what? You will be in the flow much more often. That actually will start happening in your daily life as a result of the practice of remembrance, even before you start awakening in your dreams at night, even before you become enlightened. You may already start realizing that everything is energy, and you remind yourself to pay attention to its flow. Notice how there are different things, different people, or different courses of action that you resonate with better. And when you go in those directions or focus your attention on the particular things you resonate with, you experience greater sense of ease, breathing becomes easier, and you become more relaxed. As opposed to focusing on those people or things or courses of action that you don't resonate with, you experience greater friction, greater resistance in going in those directions, or friction with people, or become tense and start cringing when you encounter something or someone you don't resonate with. I'm sure you've met some people who made you cringe, right? Or maybe you have heard some music or some other noises that made you cringe. Or perhaps you've seen some cringe-worthy things happening in your life. Those things that make us cringe also affect our breathing. Well, guess what? Instead of doing breathing exercises and techniques, making our breathing right, we actually need to learn how to pay attention to our breath and use it as a gauge that would allow us to make a real clear distinction as to whether we resonate with something or not. And of course, it's not black and white, it's on a broad scale, on the spectrum of resonance. So we develop discernment on this spectrum. We realize that there are different things that we resonate with differently. There are different people or different courses of action or thought forms that we resonate with to different degrees. Nothing is black and white, nothing is good and bad. This is one of my pet peeves, identifying the black and white way of looking at things and perceiving things as either good or bad, essentially as the main cause of human suffering. And if we dispense with this black and white dualistic way of thinking and actually develop discernment based on energy resonance, we can make much more intelligent decisions in our lives. Who wouldn't want that? Well, guess what? In order to get this level of consciousness, we have another, even simpler practice that I wanted to present to you today. Why would we need a simpler practice? Simply because some of you may feel really uncomfortable telling yourself that you're dreaming and everything is energy and let's just go with the flow. It seems like it's either silly or too good to be true, and you may feel inadequate and you'll just quit doing it. So let's take a smaller step. Let's take a preliminary practice that would actually make this possible, and you will feel fully adequate practicing remembrance if you take this preliminary practice seriously enough and do this on a regular basis. What is it? The number one preliminary practice that would allow you to actually experience all the benefits of dream yoga that I was just talking about. I call it the practice of lucid daydreaming. That's right. Daydreaming is what happens to us every day. And we all do this consciously or unconsciously. 99.9% of the time, it happens unconsciously, of course. Most of us daydream pretty much all the time. Whenever you think about anything that happened in the past, associated with anything that perhaps pushed your buttons in the past, or somebody said something, or you experienced something that actually you were grateful for, whatever happened in the past, the memory about it is a pure daydream. Because it's not happening anymore. It is happening in your mind, and you are daydreaming about the events of the past. And it doesn't even matter whether it's a recent past or a distant past. Obviously, if you're remembering what happened in your childhood, that's a daydream. But guess what? If you remember what happened just 5 minutes ago, that's a daydream too. Whatever happened 5 seconds ago is also a daydream. Even when you're thinking about the present moment, the mere fact that you're thinking about it takes time. And by the time you completed the thought, whatever you were thinking about is already in the recent past, maybe just split second in the past. It's still a daydream. And everything that you're thinking of about the future is also a daydream by definition. It's not happening yet. So you're just simply projecting into the future certain thoughts. A lot of people project the thoughts that actually make those daydreams more like nightmares. How many people do you know who experience anxiety or depression or have worries or concerns about the future? You know, probably a few, right? Maybe quite a few. Maybe you experience worries and concerns. Well, maybe once in a blue moon, right? Every time you experience a worry or a concern about future, you're daydreaming by the mere fact that you're thinking about the future. As a matter of fact, even if you're thinking about the present moment, maybe you're worried about what's going on with my friend across the world somewhere. Or maybe you may be thinking, what's going on inside my stomach with that breakfast or lunch that I just ate? It's still a daydream. Maybe you're thinking, what's going on in the cryptocurrency market? That's definitely a daydream. Anything that you are thinking about is essentially a daydream. There is no way to have a thought that would not use the mechanism of dreaming? Well, if you really grok this idea, if you really recognize that all thoughts, all thought forms, all images, all memories, all ideas are daydreams, then we're basically daydreaming all the time, nonstop, whenever we are awake. And we think we are awake, but we're actually not awake because we're dreaming. If we awaken in those dreams, then we become awake. But how many people are awake inside of their daydreams? Not very many. Why aren't there more people who would be awake inside of their daydreams? So they wouldn't create those anxieties and depressions and worries and concerns. Or if they think about the future, perhaps they would focus on things that they would like to manifest. And as we talked about, the principle of energy flowing where attention goes, they would actually provide more energy supporting manifestation of those things that they resonate with and would like to experience. Well, unfortunately, not a lot of people are disciplined with that kind of mental discipline enough to have the wherewithal to pay attention to their dreams and to remind themselves that they're dreaming. So the preliminary practice I was promising to share with you is the practice of lucid daydreaming. It's exactly that. You practice becoming awake in daydreams. And it's actually something that is very similar to meditation. You know, meditation often is considered the practice of stopping any thoughts. And unfortunately, it's very difficult if possible. It is possible, but it's very difficult. And a lot of people who are experienced meditators, they actually admit that whenever they try to meditate, they end up daydreaming most of the time. Well, if it happens to most advanced of us, guess what? Pretty much 99.9% of meditators actually spend time daydreaming or trying to suppress the process of thinking instead of actually meditating. So why don't we change our approach to meditation in such a way that it would transform it into something much more pleasant and also much more beneficial? By pleasant, I mean we stop struggling with the fact that we are daydreaming and actually accept it. By accepting the fact that you're daydreaming when you're trying to meditate, you stop beating yourself over the head for being such a bad meditator and feeling like you can't do it, and then eventually just getting frustrated about meditation and quitting. Instead, you can actually enjoy it, because when you give yourself permission to daydream when you're meditating, you will have the freedom of choice how to daydream. Why? Because by definition, when you give yourself permission to daydream, you become awake to the fact that you're daydreaming. That means you become lucid. If you allow the flow of the dream to continue, you may observe that flow. If you pay attention to the flow of your daydream, guess what? You will have the freedom of choice to step into that flow and be in the flow. Or if you choose to, you can resist the flow for whatever reason. By and large, most people who experience that level of freedom experience much more happiness. I hope you don't mind that. And when we develop this level of awareness, when we become aware of the fact that we're daydreaming whenever we're thinking about anything, we can actually become much more creative, because just like in a dream at night, you also can tap into the ultimate source of creativity. Imagine what you could do with the most creative, the most innovative thoughts, ideas, inventions, and other things that you might come up with in your daydreams. So instead of suppressing the process of daydreaming, which is what a lot of teachers tell their students, and I'm not talking about just meditation teachers, I'm talking about even school teachers and other adults telling kids, stop daydreaming, pay attention to what I'm teaching you, that literally indoctrinate kids as well as adults into not daydreaming and putting some kind of label of this is bad on a daydream. And of course, whenever people feel like this is a bad thing, they try to avoid it. And when it turns out to be unavoidable, they suffer. Well, that sounds like a really stupid way to go, right? So let's stop doing the stupid thing and actually start developing awareness of the fact that we are daydreaming pretty much all the time. And we may even turn it into practice. That's right. Turn it into a spiritual practice. We take advantage of the fact that dreaming is happening, and we learn how to become lucid in the dream. It doesn't matter that it's a daydream. The mechanism of dreaming is the same, whether it's a daydream or a night dream. As a matter of fact, it's a lot easier to wake up to the dreamlike nature of a daydream because you're not asleep. So you literally just simply tell yourself, okay, I'm fine with the daydream. Daydreaming is happening. You can also still tell yourself that everything is energy, because everything is energy of consciousness in your dreams. There is nothing else there's there. What else is there? Wood, earth, metal, water, probably fat. No, I'm kidding. It's all energy. All your dreams, all your thoughts, all your images in your mind are made of pure energy, the energy of consciousness. In this case, the consciousness of your dreaming mind that's busy daydreaming. Well, how about we actually address it and relate to that energy as such, and develop the same kind of discernment that I was talking about just a few minutes ago. Discernment as to how much you resonate with things in your dream. But in this case, we're talking about things happening in your daydream. So if you have some memories or you have some worries or concerns about future, some of them you may resonate with a little bit more. Some of them you may resonate with a little bit less. It's not black and white. It's just all relative. And as you develop the sense of discernment based on energy resonance, then you will have the freedom of choice what to focus your attention on. I often use this metaphor, the story of going to a museum. Imagine going to a museum with a friend, maybe a museum of fine art, for example. And there are all kinds of artifacts on the walls of the museum, maybe some statues, maybe some other pieces of art. And some of them you may really love, and you may just hang out and enjoy them for hours. Some of them you may not care about so much. Well, imagine your friend comes across a piece of art that he or she really hates, and just ends up spending the entire trip to the museum standing in front of that piece of art and bitching and moaning how terrible it is and how much they don't resonate with it and how it doesn't deserve to be in that museum. Well, that would be a really terrible way to spend a trip to the museum, right? You would probably smack that friend of yours overhead and say, look, you're just doing the most stupid thing. You're staring at something that you don't resonate with, even though you are really getting worked up about it. You just can't remove your glance away from this piece of art and maybe go to a different room or go elsewhere. Well, unfortunately, that's how many of us spend time in our daydreams, focusing on those things that we don't resonate with, on those things that shouldn't have happened in the past and either pissed us off or made us afraid or maybe caused us some grief. And so we're not only experiencing those emotions associated with grief or anger or something else in the past, we actually recreating them over and over in the present, adding insult to injury, so to speak. But that's not all. We go a step further and we create another nightmare about the future, don't we? By creating worries, concerns, and anxieties about future. So again, focusing on those things that we don't want to experience in the future turns that future into a terrible nightmare sometimes. Well, how would we go about that instead if we were lucid in our daydreams? Would we turn the dream into a nightmare by focusing on things we don't resonate with? What do you think? What would you do with your daydreams if you realized that you're daydreaming?
I would practice the steps of my business that bring me the most abundance.
Wonderful. And what would abundance do for you?
Give me resources to have more fun.
Resources for fun. That sounds like a wonderful way to explore the possibilities when it comes to business. Thank you for sharing that. Any other ideas, folks? I see some wonderful people here. I see a famous Qigong master, Mark Johnson, joining us today. Thank you, Mark, for being here. Maybe you have some ideas to share.
I mean, are daydreams always only thoughts, or are daydreams feelings as well?
Well, what's the difference between thoughts and feelings? How do you tell them apart?
I don't know. Lots of times.
The two sides of the same coin, so to speak. One is a little bit more mentally structured or organized that you can put into words. That's how we think by and large, with words. And the other side of that same coin is less mentally structured or organized, so that you can't put it into words, but you still feel it. So we call them feelings.
My understanding of when you talk about remembering is coming into awareness, coming into presence. But a lot of people talk about remembering who you really are. You know, and that to me is a remembering where you came from, basically remembering your essence.
Perhaps we didn't come from anywhere. What we realize is that our process of dreaming comes from somewhere. What we really develop is basically the awareness that we are the dreamer. The dreamer of our daydreams, as well as the dreamer of our dreams at night, as well as the dreamer of this whole big dream that we call our life. Now, that essentially bridges the gap that no organized religion ever managed to bridge. The gap between the creator on one hand and the creation on the other hand. As a matter of fact, it's not even the bridge, it's the way to integrate the creator and the creation and realize that they're one. So the entire universe is dreaming itself into existence. It's not like the dream being exists somewhere outside of the dream world and it's just sitting there busy dreaming it up. It's the dream world is actually dreaming itself into existence, including ourselves that we may identify with as a particular creature or character in the dream drama. In other words, we have tendency to think small, identifying with just a particular creature instead of the entirety of the creation, including the creator. If we awaken in the dream, we may actually realize I'm not separate from all the creatures in my dream. They are products of my own dreaming consciousness. The projections of my own dreaming mind. It enables us to experience much deeper understanding of everything and everyone, as well as greater compassion, because we are all one. And also that gives us the ability to recognize how we are the dreamers of our own dreams. In other words, nobody's doing it to us. We're doing it ourselves, just most of us do it unconsciously. So if you do it consciously, then you actually connect the dots so that the dreamer and the experience of the dream world, are no longer separate. The creator and creation integrate into unity. That unity, like I said, all organized religions have been trying to dance around, but never actually managed to achieve. That's what we achieve with the practice of dream yoga. Simple and elegant solution to the millennium-old conundrum of all spiritual seekers.
Lovely. Can I go on, or am I taking too much time?
Did you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I want to ask. I want to give you an example of something happened today. When Matt, was this an experience of me, because I was quite awake and quite aware, stepping out of my dream world because I said something which I very much wanted to say. So I was very briefly with my brother, who is not very well. We come from a family where you don't say things like, I love you. I really, really love you. As we were leaving, separating, I looked at him and I said, you know, I love you. And he said, well, family is family. I said, no. Yeah, yes, family is family. But I said, I love you. And it was so difficult to do. But I wanted to step right out of this whole lie, in a way, and come into myself and say something from my heart. Now, how do you describe that experience? It was so strong. I mean, it's still with me because my heart really spoke.
Well, so opening up the heart and actually expressing your true feelings, your true essence, that's authenticity. So congratulations. That's something that a lot of people struggle their entire lives. And it's always more beneficial to be authentic as opposed to being contrived or pretending. So that's a wonderful way to also express what you resonated with. And love is a really high level of energy resonance. And expressing that which you resonate with basically gives you ability to focus more attention on it. When you focus more attention on things you resonate with, what happens? Well, in the present moment, you experience greater sense of ease and relaxation. Your breathing becomes easier and deeper. You don't have to do breathing exercises to actually have deep diaphragmatic breath. It happens naturally. And what could be healthier than being natural? And then you also experience a greater sense of flow of energy, because when you focus your attention on that which you resonate with, your energy naturally flows easily in that direction, as opposed to, say, focusing on something you don't resonate with and experiencing all kinds of friction and turbulence. Well, that is the key to experiencing what we call being in the flow. The more you practice, consciously practice focusing your attention on those things that you resonate with, the more you give yourself opportunities to enjoy being in the flow at will. Well, developing this is certainly another superpower. How many people can consciously say, I have the ability to practice being in the flow on demand? Well, that's exactly what we develop. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, good to share.
So is being in the flow something that I'm answering my own question. Is being in the flow something that just happens, or do we cultivate it? And behind that was the observation, we talk about resonance. Is resonance a given? Like I that's already there, I resonate with that thing. Or is resonance also something that can be cultivated? Meaning I might start out really not resonating with something, but through a process, actually shift that so that I am in resonance with that thing.
Yes. My answer to what you're asking is yes. Is this a spontaneous occurrence to be in the flow, or is this something that you can cultivate? Well, it is a spontaneous occurrence, and many of us experience it once in the blue moon. at least once or twice in our lives, most of us experience being in the flow, at least to some extent. Now, it's all relative, of course. If we had an opportunity to bring ourselves into that state of flow more often, we might be able to develop the ability to spend more time in that state, enjoy it more fully, perhaps also discover greater depths of it. So we dive deeper into that state of flow or enjoy that flow to a greater degree. And if we do this on demand, if we learn how to trigger that state of flow at will, then we may also do this when shit hits the fan. In other words, when things seem like a nightmare is about to happen, well, this is a great invitation to actually turn into the flow state. And one of the ways to turn into the flow state is actually to recognize that even in this particular moment, even in this seemingly nightmarish experience that I'm going through, there are things that I resonate with, or things that I would resonate with if I learned my lessons. Oh, wait a moment. This is a profound transmission I'm actually about to share. This is how we turn things into much greater degree of resonance by learning whatever we needed to learn from experiences. I'm sure that you've had experiences that were crappy as you were going through them and felt like a big problem is going on, or there is some kind of disaster happening. But then in hindsight, you look back and you realize, wow, that was a profound learning opportunity for me. It was a major life lesson, and I'm really grateful for having it in my life. And as you apply this lesson, you actually create a better future. Now, having that gratitude for an experience that felt shitty as it was happening means that you changed your degree of resonance with that particular experience or person you met or something else that happened by learning whatever you needed to learn. In other words, connecting the dots between the cause and effect. Not connecting the dots, in other words, exercising ignorance as to law of karma, is a great cause of suffering, according to Buddha Shakyamuni, the founder of Buddhism. Now, if we realize that we have a way to suffer less by connecting the dots, by seeing how there are certain lessons that we can learn from some experience that perhaps were painful or uncomfortable or outright dangerous, and we become grateful for having those experiences, well, then we actually changed our degree of resonance with that particular experience or something that happened. Now, so that's the answer to your second question. It is possible to change our degree of resonance. It's either by learning something from that experience or by realizing, okay, I really would like to resonate with this person, but something doesn't quite jive, something doesn't quite connect. What energy does this person operate on? In other words, just like a radio station, if they're broadcasting at a particular frequency, well, it's really hard to be on the same page if you are operating on a different frequency. If you have enough energetic wherewithal to be able to tune into the frequency of that person, then rapport is almost guaranteed because you will be operating on the same frequency, on the same page, so to speak. Likelihood of resonance is much greater, and you will be able to then have that experience of connecting with the person at a much deeper level than would have happened otherwise. That's another example of how we also can change degree of resonance. And we do this by simply realizing that we have a variety of different frequencies of consciousness available to us. We don't have to be stuck. Most people live their entire lives being relatively stuck in a particular way of being associated with their identity, who they think they are. And if they operate at a different frequency, they wouldn't feel like themselves. Well, one of the benefits of my coaching is to develop a broader sense of identity. So you don't have that sense of not feeling like yourself when you tune into one energy resource or another energy resource. You basically become more resourceful. You operate on much broader spectrum as a human being. The expansion of consciousness that happens as a result of that is what most spiritual seekers would kill for, metaphorically speaking.
So, connecting with Lucinda's comment, what I'm hearing you say is part of it is that thought is a mechanism for having an impact on our resonance, where a lot of thought is just random and spontaneous. I can set a purpose to have a particular manner and method of thinking. I can sit down to meditate and say, this is what I will focus on in my meditation, or I'm planning a business and I'm going to sit now and think of that. And that emotion is the response to that train of thinking, and is an expression of the resonance that is present because of that effort. So resonance is always there. I can be aware of it. I can have a set of thoughts to reset a state of resonance, and I can notice the impact of that through what we call an emotional state, and ask myself, am I getting what I want? Does that feel good? Is that what I like? Am I done with that? Or no, not quite there. Okay, what other thoughts need to be generated that will have that impact on shifting resonance that I can actually tangibly experience, that thing we call emotion, right? And it's intentional and automatic in its functioning, right? And always present.
In a sense, what we achieve is the best of both worlds. On one hand, we practice dreaming. We do this lucidly, but we don't suppress dreams. We actually learn how to dream more actively and more consciously, and manifest our dreams and learn how to live our lives like a dream. On one hand. On the other hand, we learn how to be present. That's what poor guys like Eckhart Tolle and the likes have been extolling for decades, for centuries, and nobody was listening to them. But we learn how to actually connect the best of both of those ideas. And we learn how to experience lucidity, being fully present in the dream that we allow to continue unfolding and being in the flow of. So yes, it's definitely something that requires discipline, something that requires the ability to be intentional about your thoughts. And you also allow attention to flourish because you don't want to just constantly exercise intention. You also allow the flow of things to unfold and pay attention to how it flows so that you can enjoy the ride going with the flow.
And that's the next thing that shows up is I notice in my own life / practice that some occurrence will happen in the dream state that is not lucid. And then maybe an hour later or some span of time later, I'm outside of that dream state. And then I'm noticing, well, I'm having this emotional reaction to that. Why didn't I respond this way? Why didn't I respond that way? So I see a potential, at least for me, to have a practice that shortens the gap between here's this happening and my thoughts and emotions about it, and stepping into that state of being very lucid in the moment in response to that occurring, as opposed to delayed reaction.
As a matter of fact, as you know, Marsha, very well, that's exactly what we teach and practice in Qidao. A huge portion of my teaching is dedicated to exactly that, minimizing the gap between occurrence of something and a response to it. Basically, if we are experiencing some occurrence and we are reacting to it and we have some emotions about it, and only later, maybe hours or days or months later, we realize, oh, that was a profound learning opportunity for me, and I could have been actually responding to it and things would have been different now. Well, guess what? It's great. It's better late than never, as they say. But what if we condense this length of time to shorter and shorter gap between the occurrence and recognition? Oh, this is a profound lesson. Let's focus on this. Let's actually learn as much as humanly possible from it. If we minimize this time gap, if we collapse this gap completely so that we can respond in the moment, we become responsive instead of reactive. Well, what a concept. We learn how to become responding to life instead of reacting to life. Reaction, by definition, taken from the physics textbook, is action against oncoming forces. When you react to life, whatever is going on in your life, it's basically pushing back against the flow of things, the flow of events. Well, any event is the part of universal flow of things, the Tao. So basically, we have tendency unwittingly struggling against the Tao. We all have unconscious strategies for struggling against the flow. They manifest somatically in the form of specific holding patterns. Depending on the strategy, you will hold yourself in one way or another. We study all of this, and we also learn how different holding patterns are associated with different energy centers in the body, different frequencies of energy, different states of consciousness, even different realms of being, as they would put it in Buddhist terminology. So you may be familiar with the Tibetan tankas, where there are 6 different realms, and different people may be in the animal realm or in a realm of hungry ghosts or asuras or demigods and things like that. But what we learn is how to actually integrate those realms in such a way, just like we integrate all different chakras, in such a way that we don't get stuck in one particular realm or one particular chakra all the time. We let them hum and work together in sync, in concert. I've never heard of anyone achieving any degree of enlightenment who would operate on just 1 or 2 chakras, or being stuck in 1 or 2 habituated states of consciousness with a relatively narrow span of their identity. What we do is we learn how to expand our identity, how to tap into all the possible energy resources available to us within the body, and then also beyond. Mark Johnson is a great proponent of going beyond the body, right, Mark? So we're going to find a lot of energy resources and wisdom beyond the physical body. That's what we explore in our lucid dreams. We basically go on astral journeys, visit different places. He goes to Andromeda, we go to various other places. That's all cool. And we basically learn how to do this consciously. And as you do this consciously, you develop the states of consciousness that are not even available to most humans, because you just simply have much greater experience that most people don't have. And more experiences you have, the more experienced you become. So basically you become a much more functional and much more advanced, evolved human being. I hope you don't mind that. We're literally operating on the cutting edge of conscious human evolution. This is something that I've been talking about for decades. This is something that many people have been talking about for decades. I'm not the only person talking about conscious human evolution, of course, but the idea is simple. There are practices. There are certain ways to enhance our functioning as human beings. If we put those practices to good use, if we actually integrate them into our daily lives so that they become a habit, they become part of our lifestyle, we actually start living a radically different way of life, much more enlightened, much more empowered way. That's basically what I teach and practice. That's what I would love to share with you folks on a more personal level if you're interested in working with me as your coach, or in a group training format. We have group programs that I would love to invite you to explore and experience, and also have online courses. Perhaps we can start with just simply tapping into an online course, Dream Yoga course. Please go to this domain, dreamyogacourse.com. And visit my website, dive deeper into Dream Yoga. I will personally support you in every way possible. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. You know my email, you receive my emails, that's why you're here. That's why you can also send me email back, ask me any questions, I'll be happy to work with you. I look forward to working with you. See you soon. Namaste.